Good morning to all my friends and family, and welcome to Jim's 5 a.m. Club. What a wonderful Saturday. What a beautiful day. We've got the bellbirds whistling away and beeping away, pinging through the bushland here. And I'm just going to go on a bushwalk. Don't know where I'm going, but I was just speaking to a local who's lived here for 60 years. Bought his 5-acre block and house overlooking the bushland here for $18,000, he said. And he said that what I should do is take a walk down this side of the bush, cross over beneath the M2 and track the river or the creek down on the right-hand side and see where it leads us. But he did say it's a beautiful walk, and I'm looking forward to it. So what I want to do today is take us through a book summary like I normally do. The book summary today is entitled Kaizen by Sarah Harvey. And for those who are not aware, Kaizen is a Japanese term, a Japanese word, which means change for the better. And in English, it's probably best translated into continuous improvement. And it's a philosophy, and it's a way of life that the Japanese businesses, I'd say, more so than the personal philosophy, have adapted and adopted over the years to include and to leverage quality into their manufacturing process to slowly become one of the best quality manufacturers in the world. When I was a kid, I remember growing up, whenever something would be manufactured in Japan, it would be considered to be Japanese junk. And I'm talking back in the 60s and 70s. Anything that came out of Japan back then was referred to as Japanese junk, and people of my generation would be able to verify what I'm saying. So it's not being racist, it's not being naughty in any way. It was just the expectation that if you bought something, it was just cheap and nasty. Very similar to what we consider today in terms of the things that come out of China. Back then, following World War II and the industrialisation of Japan and the foreign investment, slowly but surely, the Japanese people were able to incorporate quality, as I mentioned before, into their manufacturing processes, which I guess mirrored in many ways the quality aspects of their life. Things like the Japanese tea ceremony and their religious beliefs, I guess, help shape the newfound business processes and actually worked to their advantage and was a significant help to Japanese manufacturing. So the other way you can probably understand Kaizen is, I remember attending a seminar years ago run by Lou Tice for the Pacific Institute. Lou has since passed away, but he described Kaizen as, and he used an acronym, CANEI, CANEI, and he used that to describe it as a constant and never-ending improvement. And from his perspective, he didn't talk about using Kaizen or CANEI in a business process, but of course you can. But he talked about using it in our personal lives to be constantly on the lookout for making small incremental improvements that would have a compound effect, just like compound interest, but they would have a snowballing effect and help improve one person's station in life and one person's productivity exponentially. Start off small, make small incremental changes, and before you know it, it has translated into massive, massive results. So that's it in a summary. So let's go through the book summary and look at the 3 key points that the authors have presented. And the author makes a point in the book, a valid point, and I agree with this, that some people get overwhelmed with life and the constant change that comes with living. I guess all of us would love to be able to hit a pause button and for things never to change and to stay the same. But unfortunately, there is no pause button, and life is constantly changing. 2020 introduced a massive global change that nobody could have predicted, but it happened. You know, we had a pandemic, we've had bushfires, we've had floods, we've had so many challenges. The leaders of this country at the federal and the state level have really worked their backsides off. It's been a really challenging time from a leadership perspective in terms of managing the process and making sure that nobody, or as few as possible, are left behind. So in these situations, when we've got massive change and nobody really has been to the future, we know that. Many years ago, one of my managers at IBM said to me, in times of rapid change, don't look to the person next to you for leadership, because one thing for sure and for certain is that nobody has been to the future, and nobody has had to process the changes, the rapid and significant number of changes that we're having in our lives today. On a daily basis, on a weekly basis, we are being hit from all angles all the time. So most people don't know where to start, and they end up getting discouraged. But this is where the author says that it's important to look inside yourself and make your decisions, because each person has a responsibility and an accountability for their lives and also for the people who they care for. So the first formal point to come out of this book from this wonderful author is that incremental growth is what Kaizen is all about. Baby steps, taking purposeful baby steps. Just not any step in any direction. It's not about drifting and just floating about and just hoping that things get better, but having a goal, having a plan, and taking the necessary steps to get you to where you need to go. And you can start using it today. The great thing about Kaizen, about continuous and never-ending improvement, is that you can start immediately. Every decision point throughout the day, every time you make a decision, just ask yourself, what can I do to make this better? And you can start using it. And another important thing to do is to start analysing our habits, because our habits, the things that we do every day, are what lead us to our destiny and what create our future. Now, our future just doesn't come about. Now, our future is being created by the many decisions that we've made along the way. So the author here has a call to action, and that call to action is to start analysing your habits in detail. And by analysing your habits and using journaling, you're able to do it in a creative and a structured way. So as I mentioned before, Kaizen was originally a business theory. I remember working in IBM in the mid-80s through to the 90s, and the American companies, the IT companies, were scratching their heads and saying, how were the Japanese developing and building computer systems which in many ways were very, very close to the technological breakthroughs that the US firms were enjoying. So they worked out that the whole theory of Kaizen behind it, so the quality process, emerged, where the firms, the US companies, decided to try and look at ways of improving their processes, improving their products, so that they wouldn't fall behind and that they would maintain their leadership. So the author goes on to talk about a few more things and says that our brains are always making habits because habits are a way to save power and is great for repeated behaviour. It helps preserve your mental energy for bigger and tougher tasks. So what we do is we run on automatic pilot a lot of the time. And there's a reason for that, is that it preserves our sanity, preserves our energy, and it allows us to focus and to be alerted to things which are important and may impact our health and safety. But what the author says here is that habits are also automatic if they're bad habits, if they're unwanted habits. And as we said, they can lead us not to improvement, but to being worse off. Habits like smoking, indulging in substances, overeating, under-exercising. All of these habits can have a negative impact, and they become automatic. I know myself. Sometimes I'll stop in to fill the car with petrol, and before I know it, I've paid for the petrol, and I've also got an ice cream and a packet of chips or something else in my hand, so I can munch on when I'm driving. No, I didn't intentionally go into the shop to buy chocolate and chips. I went there just to fill the car up and to keep on driving. But I've got some automatic habits. Don't know how I developed them or where I developed them. Maybe when the kids were young, we'd just pull up and get petrol and I'd get a few ice cream just to be a people pleaser. But as I said, what has happened is that those habits, good or bad, depending on your definition, have filtered into our lives and impacted the decisions that we make later on in life. So the author says it's important, it's critical that we interrogate our habits. Ask ourselves, is this habit serving me, or is this habit working against me? Really important. So what the author here is saying, and it's a call to action, that we need to go through our areas, all the areas of our lives, and to ask if there are any improvements, any changes that we need to make that will help us live a better life, do the things that we really enjoy, achieve the outcomes that we've been yearning for. So we need to set bold goals, according to the author, bold goals and to enact actions, to have a list of actions, an action plan. I remember reading a book years ago, which was the biography of Tiger Woods. And he said that from a very, very young age, he would say to his father, I want to do this, or I'm going to do that. And his father would always ask him, how exactly are you going to achieve that? And he would force the young Tiger Woods to build an action plan, to think it through, to try and identify the hiccups, the roadblocks, the potholes, the detours that may need to be followed in order to get to where he wanted to get. And that, I guess, helped him become an awesome golfer, but it didn't quite help him in his personal life, which was his great undoing. Anyway, the second formal point to come out of this book is where the author says that you need to make your first step so small. So the big mistake that a lot of people make, according to the author, is that they try and go for a magic leap of faith. The author here says that it's critical, it's imperative that we take small steps, really, really small steps, so small that you hardly notice them. And there are lots of examples. He uses, or she uses, they use, let me have a look, Sarah Harvey, so yes, she or they, or these days could even be a he, said that the British racing team were once very, very good at cycling, but then they fell into a rut. But with new leadership, what they did was they decided to make incremental changes, which paid huge dividends. And during the Olympics, each 1% improvement made a huge impact overall for each rider and also the team. And they had a fantastic result in the 2008 and 2012 Olympics, according to the author. So the key message is we need to make changes, but those changes need to be initially really, really small and insignificant so that you don't notice them and that you're conscious and subconscious, as well as the people around you, don't push back and try and disrupt your process or your progress through creating challenges. And once again, they reaffirm that small changes initially help build momentum, help get you moving in the right direction. And sooner or later, that momentum will help you get over the hump. Get over the hump. And each change, each road has a little hump in the beginning, which most people need momentum to get over. Otherwise, they lose the opportunity and change paths or change directions or head back home. So a very, very important point that psychologically, a lot of people suffer self-sabotage. And the self-sabotage comes from trying to institute major changes too quickly. I love major changes. I'm the sort of person who loves making a decision and sticking to it. But not everybody's the same. So it's the little things that we do consistently, according to the author, that lead us in the best direction. So what the author is suggesting here is that if we trying to make a change too big, what it does is it creates cognitive dissonance, and it just doesn't sit well with us. And that's why when we go on a diet and all of a sudden we start to feel uncomfortable, you know, that moment that you reach for the chocolate bar, or that moment that you decide to take the easy road, is the moment that you probably ruin your diet, and you probably can't get back on the same path again. So the key is to make small changes where you don't get pushback from your brain, from your conscious and subconscious brain, as it hardly notices what those changes are. So the last formal point to come from this book is where the author says that we need to review our habits on a constant basis. We need to regularly track our progress to see if we're on track or off track. I remember going many years ago to a seminar run by Jim Rohn, and Jim Rohn has since passed away as well. But Jim Rohn is the father of modern day, public speaking from a personal development perspective. And he would always say that it's important to keep track of where you're going, to know where you're going, keep track of where you're going, know how you're going to get there, and to constantly ask yourself, are you on track or off track? I remember him saying that time and time again. Are you on track or off track? He was a potato farmer from Idaho, but his messages, his presentation style was just absolutely magnificent. I could sit and listen to him all day, and I could sit and read his books all day as well. I'm just so happy that I decided to go to his seminar all those years ago. So, as my friend Johnny D also says, we need to keep on moving forward, keep on making progress every day. Just keep moving, Johnny says. Don't stop, because if you stop, you become a target. If you stop, you just create additional challenges. So I'm at a nice little juncture here in my walk. We're just going to walk across the creek to the other side. Andrew, who I spoke to earlier, suggested I take this path as it will just lead me along the creek for a while. And then I think I have to come back across the creek a little bit further up. But we'll just keep on moving and see where it leads us, as long as I don't tread on anything that's slithery. So finishing up from this wonderful book from this author, the author says it's important to do journaling, to have journals, and to fill your library with your books. This is a lesson that I got also from Steve Covey, who I went to see in seminar. And he said it's important to read books and to read lots and lots of good books. But more importantly, he said, your library should be filled with your books, your journals, your thoughts, your observations. And that's why, for me, Facebook is very, very powerful, as it's my tool for me to document my life, because a life worth living is a life worth documenting. So all of the book summaries that I pick up and do, I load them into YouTube, Facebook, Instagram and LinkedIn. So I've got a permanent record there that I can go back to time and time again. And it's an opportunity for me to grow and develop, and also on an annual basis to look back and see what I was doing on this very day, a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and then to relive those moments, to contemplate, to reflect on those moments, and to leverage those moments in terms of learnings. Because we know very well that learning is the simple process of attaching the unknown to the known. So that the more you learn, the more you know, the more you stretch yourself, the more you're capable of learning and knowing. So that's why it's important, it's critical to be a life learner. That's why it's important and critical for organisations to take risks, to push themselves, because they continue to grow, and you just never know along that path where you're leaning just outside your comfort zone that you're going to get that lucky break, that break that's going to take you through a window, through another door, on another path to somewhere absolutely brilliant. And if it takes you to somewhere where it turns out to be a horror story, you just turn back, turn around, or just find a way over, under, or through it. But all the lessons that we gain, all the lessons that we learn on these journeys are lessons that we can use and reuse. So that's about it. So thank you very much for joining me on this episode of Jim's 5am Club on this beautiful spring day in suburban Sydney. I'm here at Northmead and just going through the parkland on my way to Borkham Hills and Castle Hill. So thank you once again, and I'll just cross over the creek here and take the path on the other side and see where it lands or where it leads me. And as I say, I'll just broaden my horizon. So take care, and we'll chat again. I look forward to coming to you again from a different location with a different message of empowerment, where we can be partners in each other's growth and development and use it to springboard our experiences and, as I said, be the springboard, the stepping stone that other people can also follow. Take care, yasas, and we'll chat again. Bye for now.